Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's talk about building a career today. In a world that's just constantly changing, with AI getting smarter by the second, how do you stay relevant? The old rules, they're pretty much out the window. So we're going to need a new playbook. Let's dig in. So that's a pretty bold claim, right? Maybe even a little terrifying. It comes from Dave Keeshan, an engineer who's been in the trenches of the tech industry for decades, watching these huge shifts happen. And his argument is that the one thing we were all told was the secret to success, becoming a deep specialist, might actually be a trap. And that really begs the question, doesn't it? If getting better and better at just one thing isn't the answer anymore, then what is? Well, Dave's story, it gives us a really surprising and I think powerful alternative. All right, so to really get this, we've got to look at Dave's career because it wasn't some straight shot up the corporate ladder. No, it was more of a winding path, a journey of constantly having to adapt through booms, busts, and entire tech revolutions. I mean, just look at this timeline. It tells the whole story. He starts out in microchip design back in the dot-com boom, working in the legendary Bell Labs building. But when that bubble burst, he didn't just sit there. Nope, he pivoted, moved to Australia, and jumped into computer vision. Then later on, he got into the AI hardware game with Movidius, which eventually got snapped up by Intel. Every single step was a complete reinvention. So the big takeaway here was pretty obvious. Industries change fast. The hot job of today can easily become the legacy system of tomorrow. He figured out that staying relevant wasn't about digging your trench deeper in one spot. It was about having the right skills to jump to a whole new battlefield when you needed to. And that required a completely different kind of tool. And this is where the story gets really interesting and frankly, a little weird. While he was in Australia, he ran into a very human problem and he tackled it with a classic engineer solution. He signed up for a stand up comedy course. Now, you could understand this wasn't some midlife crisis or a secret dream to be famous. This was pure problem solving. People kept telling him he was hilarious, but because of his super fast Irish accent, they were missing half the jokes. The engineer in him saw a budge in the system, a message getting lost in transmission. So he literally treated it like an engineering project. Step one, identify the problem. It was clear, I'm not being understood. Step two, design a solution. The solution? Go learn from the absolute masters of delivery, timing, and connecting with an audience, stand up comics. It was a perfectly logical approach to a very messy human problem. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Comedy? Engineering? These two things feel like they're on opposite ends of the universe, right? But what Dan found was that the skills he was learning on a comedy stage were amazingly directly useful back in the office, giving him his totally unique edge in his tech roles. What he walked away with was this incredible, unexpected toolkit. Comedy taught him how to project confidence even when his knees were knocking. It gave him audience awareness, that thing where you can almost read their minds and answer their questions before they even ask them. And crucially, he learned to structure information like a joke, with a clean setup and a killer punchline from maximum impact. And maybe the most powerful tool of all was this idea of ruthless editing. In comedy, if a word doesn't serve the punchline, it's gone. No mercy. It has to be as tight as possible. And you have this light bulb moment. Wait a minute. That's exactly how we should treat code or a presentation. If it isn't absolutely essential to the core idea, get rid of it. But here's the real secret he discovered, the absolute golden nugget. It wasn't about the jokes, it was about confidence. It was about walking into a room, owning that space, and projecting to everyone in it, hey, for the next 5 minutes, don't worry, I've got this. Making everyone else feel comfortable because they believe you're in control. That's a superpower in any job. Okay, so what does this all mean for the rest of us? For you? It really suggests that the professional of the future, the one who is truly future proof, is a hybrid, a mix of deep technical skill and a broad set of very human skills. What we're seeing here is a huge shift. The old model, it glorified that siloed expert. You know the type, the brilliant jerk who's a genius at their desk, but you can't stand being in a meeting with them. Well, Dave argues those days are numbered. especially since AI is getting so good at pure technical stuff. The future belongs to the person who can solve problems by combining their tech skills with communication, confidence, and just general social smarts. And here's another thing he noticed, which is just fascinating. It wasn't just him. Almost every single engineer he worked with had a serious something extra. They were musicians, they were artists, they were high level athletes. This whole idea of being just an engineer was a total myth. Turns out people were never just their job titles to begin with. And that really brings us to this powerful question from Dave. We feel this immense pressure to pick a lane, to put ourselves in one little box with one little label. But why? Why do we have to be just one thing? Embracing all those other parts of ourselves isn't a distraction. It's actually where our strength and our resilience comes from. So that leaves us with one final and I think really important question for you. Your career is what you do, but your resilience comes from who you are. Look, you're not just one thing. You're a professional and a parent. You're a coder and an artist, an analyst and a gamer. So the real question to ask yourself is what's your and how are you going to use it to build your toolkit for whatever comes next?